Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, providing more than 41,000 jobs in the production of wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details at choosewood.com.
From St. Louis Public Radio. This is St. Louis on the Air.
I think that, one of our big concerns here is that Ameren is not retiring their coal plants fast enough. Under their new plan, they would only retire their Merrimack and Sioux plants before 2030. They would keep the Labadie coal plant, which is the second largest emitter of dangerous sulfur dioxide pollution in the nation, and its Rush Island coal plant, which is the sixth largest emitter of sulfur dioxide in the country. They'd keep those two plants operating into the late 20s and early 2040s, long after the climate science dictates.
I'm Sarah Fensky. Last September, Ameren Missouri unveiled a long-range plan that includes a goal of reaching net zero carbon emissions across all its operations by 2050. Well, Andy Knott says that's not fast enough. Knott is the Deputy Regional Director for the Sierra Club's Beyond Coal campaign, and the Sierra Club recently graded 50 utilities across the U.S. on their transition from coal to clean energy. They gave Ameren Missouri a D. The report is called The Dirty Truth About Utility Climate Pledges, and joining us today to talk about it is Andy Knott. Andy, welcome.
Thank you, Sarah.
So a D sounds really bad, Andy. Is it?
Yes, it is. Just to explain a little bit about how we did this report, as you said, it graded the 50 largest utilities around the country, and it graded them on three criteria. First, whether utilities like Ameren are closing coal plants by 2030, as the climate science demands. Secondly, whether the utilities are planning to build new fracked gas plants. And thankfully, Ameren has no current plans to build new gas, which is very good because methane is a potent greenhouse gas. And third, future planned investments in a clean energy portfolio, which includes renewables and energy efficiency. So Ameren received a D letter grade primarily because it plans to burn a significant amount of coal well beyond 2030. And again, the climate science really demands that we phase out coal by that year, as well as gas by 2035 to avert the worst consequences of the climate crisis.
So Ameren Missouri has this big plan that involves getting things right by 2050. If you were assessing plans by that goal, would they get a better grade? Are they on the right track, just doing it too slow?
They're on the right track. They're just doing it too slow. Other utilities around the country are making this transition very quickly. There is three utilities in this report got a grade of A. One of those is in Indiana, which is a coal state, and it is phasing out all of its coal by 2028. Replacing that with clean energy and not building any new gas. And this is the Northern Indiana Public Service Company. It serves a lot of industry just outside of Chicago. So this is a fairly significant utility that is here in the Midwest, and it's figuring out how to do this. So we just need Ameren to do the same.
So we reached out yesterday to Ameren Missouri. We asked for a response to the Sierra Club report. And this morning, Ameren sent us a statement from Ajay Arora. He's the Chief Renewable Development Officer at Ameren Missouri.
At Ameren Missouri, we are committed to getting the energy we provide as clean as we can, as fast as we can, while maintaining the reliability our customers depend on. With the transformative expansion of wind and solar energy, Ameren Missouri has a responsible and affordable plan to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Ameren Missouri's plan has broad support among environmentalists, including the Natural Resources Defense Council and the Nature Conservancy, as well as community leaders such as the Urban League of Metropolitan St. Louis and United Way of Greater St. Louis. Ameren is committed to clean energy. We invite our customers to learn more at amerenmissouri.com/clean.
And that is Ajay Arora, the Chief Renewable Development Officer at Ameren Missouri. Andy, I'd love to get your reaction to what he said in that statement.
Sure. I think this really goes, again, back to the speed at which the utilities are making these transitions. And, Ameren, they have proposed a significant amount of clean energy over the next 10 years in their most recent plan. A big problem with that is that most of that investment would take place in the latter part of this decade. And again, we need to be replacing fossil fuels with clean energy by 2030, by the end of this decade, in order to avert the worst consequences of the climate crisis. I mean, in terms of their rhetoric, and they have changed. Prior to just a few years ago, Ameren talked about clean energy like solar as experimental, or they had a pilot project on the roof of their headquarters. But they have changed the way they talk about it. They've turned a corner, but they just need to speed up.
Should we consider it a sign of progress that it seems like every utility now is at least talking a good game? As you say, the rhetoric has changed. Does this maybe mean they're moving in the right direction?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of things have changed. The utilities are realizing that customers want clean energy. Also, investors are wanting clean energy. Wall Street is putting their money into the clean energy revolution because they're concerned about the risk of the climate crisis. And also, clean energy makes economic sense. So that's part of what's driving this. I think that one of our big concerns here is that Ameren is not retiring their coal plants fast enough. Under their new plan, they would only retire their Merrimack and Sioux plants before 2030. They would keep the Labadie coal plant, which is the second largest emitter of dangerous sulfur dioxide pollution in the nation, and its Rush Island coal plant, which is the sixth largest emitter of sulfur dioxide in the country. They'd keep those two plants operating into the late 20s and early 2040s, long after the climate science dictates.
So is this a matter of just not wanting to make the investment in enough clean energy to make those unnecessary?
Yeah, I think that essentially Ameren needs to step up the pace on the clean energy investments so that they can replace those coal plants. I mean, that is essentially what we're talking about.
And as you say, they are making some investments in clean energy by 2030. They're talking about 3,000 megawatts. What do we know about the mix of what they're bringing on to get to that much energy?
It's a mixture of wind and solar. I don't have the exact numbers at my fingertips, but it's mostly wind. But they are also dramatically increasing their investments in solar, which they have not done to date so far. They have recently invested in 700 megawatts of wind in Missouri, and of course we've supported that, and we'll continue to support that. So it's going to be a mix of solar and wind.
So I understand your study, in addition to Ameren Missouri, which we're talking about here today, it also includes 3 other utility companies in Missouri. I'm curious how they're doing.
Sure. So 2 of those utilities are doing worse than Ameren. One is Evergy, which serves the Kansas City area. It used to be called Kansas City Power and Light. They received a grade of F. The other is Associated Electric Cooperatives, Inc., which serves all of the rural electric co-ops in Missouri. They also received an F. I should mention that utility, AECI, does not even have a climate goal. The 4th utility in Missouri that was graded is called Empire Electric, and they are based in Joplin and serve Southwest Missouri. They received a C. They have retired all of the coal that they owned in Missouri, They do, however, have investments in 2 other coal plants, which is one reason they did not get a higher grade.
Boy, hearing about those Fs, I mean, it just seems like you're kind of fighting an uphill battle here. Is there reason to have some hope, or is this something where, I mean, looking at parts of the state, does it feel like we're going to end up destroying this planet?
No, there is definitely cause for hope. The change in public perception of clean energy is real and is driving a lot of these utilities to improve their generation mix. Wall Street is proposing or is supporting more clean energy all the time. I remember being on an Ameren earnings call about 3 years ago when a large investment firm asked the question, why don't you have more wind in your portfolio? And that to me was a turning point in the way that investors are looking at this, and I think that again that's also driving this change.
Is maybe part of the sluggishness in getting these coal plants offline just has to do with the personnel issues involved? I understand that these plants employ a number of people.
They do, and Sierra Club supports a justice-centered transition for workers, as well as the communities in which these fossil industries are located. We strongly believe that companies should plan ahead and work with their workforce to minimize the impacts with things like job training, moving employees to the growing clean energy divisions of their companies, and offering incentives for early retirement. And also just supporting a lot of what's being proposed in Washington right now, which are funds for clean energy transition. I think it's important to point out that the United Mine Workers just yesterday endorsed President Biden's climate goals with a strong support system to transition mine workers into new careers. I mean, that they know that things are changing, and we need to transition people out in a fair way.
So this report came out a few months ago. I know your goal was to sort of shame the people who are doing badly and force them to continue down the path of doing better. How do you hope to keep pressure on Ameren Missouri going forward?
So, Ameren, they are required to update, to issue new long-range plans every 3 years. The one that you mentioned earlier that came out in September is just the latest one. And they can update them in the intervening years as well. We saw Evergy do that a couple of years ago. So, we'll continue to be looking towards these new plans and continue to advocate for clean energy transition. We believe that, we'll be updating this report every year. So we think, for example, Evergy will come out with a new long-range plan later this month. So that could improve their score. Ameren could do the same thing by 2023 with its next plan, or even in the intervening years.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how all this shakes out. And I know 2030, that's a really important date for you. So it sounds like you're gonna keep that heat on.
Definitely.
Andy Knott, Deputy Regional Director for the Sierra Club's Beyond Coal campaign. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here. If you learned something new from today's episode, consider leaving us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the easiest way to help people discover our show. We appreciate it. Thank you. St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri, St. Louis.
Support comes from Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to sustainable and sound conservation of the state's forests, which support more than 41,000 Missouri jobs, resulting in a $10 billion industry. ChooseWood.com.